All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the human race, welcome to Season 2 of the Demons Within podcast with me, Greg Miller, and my co-host, The Job Pete. So yeah, it's really good to be back. This is Season 2. I don't know if it's actually Season 2. It's more like we just took an extended break after Season 1 because we had a lot of shit to do. You know, the book came out. We have all sorts of things going on. Job Pete's got a ton of stuff going on behind the scenes. And we just took a little break so we could focus on other endeavors. But yeah, this is Season 2. This is Season 2. You know, and some of that stuff we were working on, we have new video content, live content on TikTok and Instagram. And you know, like I said, the Job Pete, he's got a ton of stuff in the works with Safe Inc. He sits on the board of Safe Inc. This one's for the nonprofit Trophy Case, which is another project he's a big part of. And then, you know, I'm hard at work on my second book. Demons Within will be in stores. We don't have a timeline. It could be months. You know, working with literary agents, we have meetings and contacts with various smaller publishing companies, none of like the big ones, none of the Penguins, none of the Bantams. But yeah, big things are coming. I'm super excited and I hope you all should be. But you know, we're back because it was tough to stay away. It was tough to just stop spreading the messages that we like to spread here on the Demons Within podcast and Mill P Writes. So yeah, we're back. So thank you to everyone who's bought the book or even just read the book. If you bought the book and you shared it with friends and they read it, that's amazing. Thank you so very, very much. So what else is new, Peter? You excited for Diwali? So today's November 12th. I think it's Diwali, which I honestly know nothing about. I'm trying to expand my horizons on these things. But I really know nothing about it except from that one Office episode where Michael goes to Kelly Kapoor's like Diwali party, and it was a real hoot. What else is new? So besides that, we have the Giants are playing the Cowboys today. At the time of recording this, they have not played yet, and I'm honestly just preparing myself to be devastated. It's like that technique, negative visualization, in which we always talk about it. I'm probably going to talk about it on next week's episode, which has a lot of heavy stoicism talk. So yeah, I'm literally preparing for the worst because when they played on week 1, they lost 40-0. They lost 40-0. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life as a Giants fan. But, you know, it's all in the brain. It's all in the brain. I think we're going to start right where we left off at the end of Season 1, which is really still just the same season as this, except for the break. We started where we do a little news at the beginning, and I think we're going to do that now. So this story, this one's from the AP, but I'm sure everybody has heard of it. States are suing Meta, formerly known as Facebook. They're claiming its social platforms are addictive and they harm children's mental health. And I agree. I just don't know how you're going to sue. That's my thing. I guess a big point of this argument, I was filed by 33 states, filed this lawsuit. They're saying that they gather data from people under the age of 13 without the parents' consent. So I know that's a huge problem. But at the same time, I just don't. I mean, how are they going to enforce this stuff? It's kind of like porn sites. When you go to a porn site, not that I do. I'm a holy boy. I'm a church boy now. I'm in the choir. But it's like if you go to a porno site, it just asks you if you're 18 and you click yes. You could be a baby. You could literally be a baby that crawls over to a computer and accidentally hits the mouse on the yes button, and then the baby's looking at porno. I really don't know how they're going to enforce this. I do think they have to work on it, though. They have to figure out a way because I honestly think social media is poison. It is poison. I mean, I use it, obviously, but I didn't have social media because my brain couldn't handle it, especially when I was, you know, having the drinking issues and all these other things going on in my life. I really struggled to even like it just drove me insane. So I actually didn't have it, but it's obviously very valuable for business. I mean, it's the way I spread the message in the stuff that I like to do for a living now, you know, so I couldn't exist without it at this point in my life. But as far as personal use, I just can't do it. I mean, and there's millions of level-headed people who are well-adjusted that can they get nothing but like happiness out of it. It brings them joy in their life, and that's awesome. But there is this massive segment of the population that it just messes with them. I can't imagine growing up in high school with social media. I mean, I think I had MySpace like 3 years after I graduated, and I think my only friend was Tom. I'm pretty sure it was Tom, and that was it. And then it was like, I didn't, I would like hit on girls on it, but I had no game on messaging. So it was a disaster. It was just a disaster all around. But I guess, what this may lead to is all sorts of new legislation, all sorts of new laws and protocols and whatnot. And I guess right now they are just focusing on Meta. But at some point, I'm guessing they're going to branch out to TikTok and Snapchat. And I guess according to the Washington, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb, Facebook is the worst of the worst when it comes to using technology to addict teenagers to social media, all in the furtherance of putting profit over people. I mean, that's also like the society that we've built here, though. I mean, you're in Washington. That's the society that's built. It's capitalism. Of course, they're putting profit over people. That's literally the name of the game. And I'm not like some socialist guy. I'm not a Bernie Sanders guy. I like Bernie Sanders, but I don't know anything about him because I'm not a politic guy. But yeah, I think this is interesting, and I'm really, interested to see where that goes, because it could be a game changer. But like I said, I don't know how they're going to implement these new rules with the way the internet works. But I do know there's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of cyberbullying, stalking, all sorts of stuff. I mean, when people have free reign to express any opinion they want from the safety of a keyboard, people are just going bananas. There's really no other way to put it. I mean, I've seen families literally torn apart, like during the Donald Trump election campaign, during his presidential campaign. I mean, families were torn apart just because of Facebook statuses and Twitter tweets. It was something. So yeah, that's basically it. I thought that was a good one to kick off on. And the other thing, actually, while I'm on the topic of Meta, I believe Meta owns Instagram. I'm not going to fact check just because I'm pretty sure. And if you're watching this, you can Google it. But I have an issue with Instagram right now because, well, it's my fault. It's definitely my fault. I can't be blaming other people for my mistake. But I had a credit card linked to my Instagram because we would occasionally run ads, especially as we were approaching the book release date. And then I lost that card a couple weeks ago. So I got a new one. They sent a new card in, new number, all that jazz. And then I was on Instagram today because I was looking to see if I was going to boost a post. As soon as I went to try to boost it, it said I had a balance on the ads. So I was like delinquent on an ad. It was only like a couple $100, but I just had no idea. So I paid it. But since that few weeks ago, Mill P. Writes has been sucked out of the algorithm. So anybody who follows us on Instagram at Mill P. Writes, you'll see most of our videos get thousands of views, a ton of likes, shares, everything. And all of our recent content is getting like 200 views, 7 likes. So yeah, I got to figure out how to claw my way back into the algorithm. I've clawed my way out of a lot worse than that. So I will figure out a way to get things back up and running. But like I said at the top of this episode, we got a ton of content coming up. So stay tuned for that. Furthermore, on the topic of Facebook and social media, it definitely leads into the topic of this episode, which is the inner roommate. So we have essentially unlimited time to have dialogue in our heads. And we talk to ourselves all day, and most of us drive ourselves crazy with incessant social media use, for example, and we just dwell on things. And I'm going to tell you how to get out of that. So one of the most crucial aspects to finding inner peace and contentment is to stop thinking about yourself. And you might wonder what I mean thinking about yourself. I don't mean it in like a selfish way. I just mean people are almost always thinking about themselves to a degree. And psychologists have recently released a study that said most people have on average 50,000 thoughts a day. That's insane. Imagine somebody saying 50,000 things to you in one day, and that's what you're doing to yourself. The problem with that is that voice in your head, which, I call the ego, which Eckhart Tolle calls the ego, that voice will never be satisfied. It will never be satisfied, and it will always find something to have a problem with or to be a problem. And the problem with that like I just said, is it'll never be satisfied. So before your current problem, there was a different problem. And after this problem, there will be another problem. It'll be a new problem. So basically, you will never be free of problems until you are free of the part of yourself that has so many problems. So if you want peace from a problem, you have to understand why you perceive a situation as a problem. And I want to just disclaimer, I'm talking about mental and emotional problems, like getting yourself worked up. If there's a physical issue, if somebody's like literally trying to stab you, you certainly have a legitimate problem. And I don't think these tips will help with that. So what is something you do when you have that self-critic, you have that voice in your head complaining and feeling like a victim, and feeling jealous, feeling envious, feeling like you don't want to get out of bed, feeling like the world is full of woe. So most of the time people think, and this is what I used to do, oh, what should I do about that problem? What should I do about it? But what I'm positing today, and a lot of this I get from Michael A. Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, and I'll talk about that a little more. So you don't ask, what should I do about it? Ask what part of me is being disturbed by it. Asking what I should do about it, that implies that the problem is external. Generally speaking, with mental and emotional distress, the problem is internal. So it's like if I would feel jealous over something, I'd be like, oh, what should I do to essentially protect myself from this problem, from this jealousy? But that's not what you have to do. Otherwise, that will continuously come back and you'll always be a jealous person. So what you have to do is you have to ask, what part of me is feeling jealous? You have to look inward. Once you see the disturbed part, and you can ask, who is seeing this disturbed part? And the answer is, you are. The fact that you can see the disturbance means you are not the disturbance. And that's the key part about it, because you're not your thoughts. And if you keep equating your thoughts with external issues and the problems are external, and then those emotions and those feelings and that part of you that feels the disturbance, you identify with that, then you're not seeing it. And that's when it bothers you. So as long as you can see the disturbance and know that it's not you, it allows you to maintain objective awareness of the inner awareness instead of losing yourself to the outer situation, the external event, which is out of your control. And like I said, it's like people always say, what can I do about it? They assume if you change the thing outside that you'll be okay. And that does work, but it's temporary. There's always the next problem, and the only solution is to change your frame of reference. Break the habit of thinking the solution is rearranging the things outside of you and letting go of the part of you that has so many problems with reality. So that sounds like a lot of psychoanalytic, spiritual mumbo jumbo. What do you think, Pete? What do you think, Jobber? What do you think, Jobby the elf? Nothing. He must be having a problem. So how do you do this, and how do you get out of this incessant thought loop, this constant irritation? And some people, it's not constant. Actually, most people, I'd wager it's not a constant dialogue. But when it is, it's frustrating, it's annoying, it's distressing, and it really gets in the way of living a happy life and finding inner peace. So once you realize that there's a separation between you and the perceived problem, between you and the anger and the resentment and the jealousy and the fear and the shame, and you are the one who's noticing these things, then you can realize you're not these things. So to start, you just watch. Just take time and watch. Like if you have a quiet night or you have nothing to really do and you've been having some stress or anxiety or any of the negative emotions that I talk about all the time, just sit with them and just watch them. Separate yourself mentally from them, because you're not those things. You're just feeling those things. So when you watch, you're basically being aware that you are aware of what's going on. And eventually you'll start to notice that you're just observing a human being's personality with all its strengths and weaknesses, with all its character defects, with all its talents, all its hopes, all its dreams. And you can really start to begin the work of finding inner peace. And this is what Michael A. Singer calls the inner roommate, because it's like there is literally somebody else in there with you. So the inner roommate, the part of your brain that won't shut up, it has something to say about everything. You normally don't notice it because you don't step back and separate yourself from it. And your brain's going, you're thinking, your thoughts are going, it's the ego, it's the inner roommate. So what this means is that there's two aspects to your inner being. The first is your awareness, the witness, the center of willful intention. That's you. You are those things. You're the entity that's alive and aware of these things. The second thing is that which you watch. aka the inner roommate. So just watch it. Just watch it, and you'll notice how much of a maniac it can be. Just judging everything, complaining about everything, feeling resentful, comparing you to every other person in the world. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So this is what Michael A. Singer suggests to do. And this is the part. Now I'm at the crux of it. I'm at the crux. This is the part that has helped me immensely. It actually helped me to the point when I first started getting into this stuff and I was, sobriety, recovery, I was finding spirituality, but I still had these thoughts. I still just, would get easily frustrated. I had a low frustration tolerance. I had rejection sensitivity. I had emotional dysregulation, which are symptoms of ADHD, to be honest, which I do have. I don't think I've ever mentioned that on the podcast. But anyways, I was still having these things that I thought I should be able to manage them because they weren't so bad that I was like, oh, I need to be just doped up on medication. But I wasn't drinking anymore, so I wasn't numbing these feelings. So when I read The Untethered Soul and I saw this part and I put it to use, it works so well that I almost never need to do anything. It has to be a major feeling for me to have to break out the inner roommate technique again. So what you do is you personify it externally. You personify the voice in your head externally. In other words, if your ego, your inner roommate, those thoughts, if it actually did manifest a body and it was with you all day, walking with you, chilling with you at your apartment or your house, and it followed you everywhere, you wouldn't last a day. You would hate that person more than anybody in the world. It would be the most annoying, neurotic, insane person to ever exist. Like, think about the most annoying person that you know. Now, magnify that person's annoyance by 100 million. That would be that voice if you struggle with these things. So try it. If you're having an issue with that, even if it's just one thing, if it's one thing and you just can't seem to get your brain to stop casting judgment or identifying with problems, just try that. I used it plenty of times and it worked. You just pretend that that voice is literally a person next to you saying those same exact things about anything. And it just makes you sort of realize how pointless it is. And it really opens up your mind, your actual mind. It opens it up to find peace and to accept that love and that joy and just that happiness, which is what everyone strives for. Everyone strives for that. And, if eventually after you practice that for a while, you'll realize your will's stronger than the habit of listening to that voice and letting it dictate your life. And once you separate your being from that voice as the watcher, to that inner roommate, you can do so much for your peace of mind, body, and spirit. So yeah, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Oh, and complete side note, this is my inner roommate. My inner roommate's talking right now. I'm wearing sunglasses. This isn't a gimmick. I'm not trying to look cool. I look cool without them anyways. We have a new lighting rig up in here and it's so bright. I need to figure out something to do because it's blinding me. Like, I can't even read if I don't have these things on. So I know I look fantastic and cool and hip. I look like a hip guy. At least my inner roommate's telling me I look like a hip guy, but that's why. So you can hate on me all you want. I'm good. Now that we sort of have that out of the way in the explanation of the inner roommate, I do want to get into some helpful hints on ways that you can quiet that inner roommate or that critic, that negative self-talk voice in the brain that's always causing issues. And, these are just little tips until you can really get to work with the inner roommate stuff that I talked about. And then they're pretty helpful. They're sort of like short-term temporary relief. It's like when you got a toothache and you take some ibuprofen. It stops it temporarily, but then you got to get the tooth yanked out. Pretty much the same concept here. The thoughts, they're annoying as hell. You do these tips here. It sort of mitigates the issue for a little while, but then you got to yank the inner roommate right out of the brain. The first tip is stop ruminating. So a lot of times when you're feeling an issue and you're ruminating, you realize you're ruminating and you don't want to ruminate. So sometimes you'll do things like repeat in your brain, like, don't think about that. Stop thinking about that. But the problem with that is oftentimes the more you try to avoid thinking about it, it just makes you think about it more. Sometimes I would have like the anxiety inception. I would think about how I'm having anxiety, and just knowing that I have anxiety would give me more anxiety. It was brutal. So instead, distract yourself with an activity. It's pretty basic. Work out. If you can pay attention, watch a movie, clean the house, go for a walk, listen to some good music, talk to a friend. There's a lot of options, but if you're really just sitting around doing nothing, you're literally ruminating, just thinking, oh, stop thinking about that. It's just going to make you think about that. So that's a problem. So don't do that. The next one, this is similar to the inner roommate, but it's sort of like an offshoot. It's to ask yourself what advice you'd give to a friend. So if you're having these feelings about anything, about a problem at work, about a breakup, about financial distress, anything, imagine that one of your friends was going through that exact thing and they came to you and asked for advice or asked for help. What would you say to them? Sometimes by reframing the problem in a way that you're actually projecting it to somebody else where you're offering the advice, it sort of helps you to feel like you know what to do now. And again, that's another temporary relief for it. And it's very helpful, because we're often quick to say those things to ourselves, like the negative self-talk, but you're more likely to say nice things to a friend. It's like you can't have compassion for other people until you have it for yourself. It's sort of the same thing there. So the next tip I put is to examine the evidence. Learn to recognize when your critical thoughts are exaggeratedly negative, because that is a problem. That's the inner roommate. The inner roommate blows things out of proportion. I would actually argue that the vast majority of the things the inner roommate bitches about don't even have any prerequisites that would require frustration or negativity. That's just how the inner roommate is. Like I said, the inner roommate's a maniac. What I would suggest you when I say examine the evidence, like literally it's just another way to say journal. Write down a list of things, write down anything. There's all sorts of stuff, positive affirmations, things that you're grateful for. Just write down the exact problem that you're having, A lot of times too, if your problem's with a specific person, especially like a loved one, or an ex or a current girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, write a letter to that person explaining everything you want to say, all your feelings, everything, and then you just don't send it to them. You can do, you don't got to get super dramatic and ceremonial, but you could even burn the letter. You could do whatever you want with it. But it's a good way to get everything out. And it is, like I said, it's a temporary relief until you can learn how to deal with the inner roommate full time. All right. So the last one that I'm going to talk about is to balance acceptance with self-improvement. So there is a big difference between always telling yourself that you're not good enough and reminding yourself that you can work to become better. So accept your flaws for what they are today, but resign to work on the issues you want to address. Although it sounds counterintuitive, you can do both at the same time. So kind of what I mean for that, it's like if you have social anxiety, you can accept that. It's fine if you know that you have that, but you got to work on it. You got to get out of your comfort zone. It's the same with anything else. It's like any other skill. Not everybody's good at everything. But until you try to get better, I would rather try and fail at something and then just not try and just accept it. Just acknowledge that you have flaws, but determine to remain a work in progress as you strive to become better. I don't know if any of that made sense. I'm a little rusty. I'm a little sweaty. But yeah, we're back. I don't know how long this episode is because it's like I said, we're just recording now. What do you think, Jobby the Elf? Man, the job's real quiet today. But yeah, so thank you. We are back. Thank you again to everybody who bought the book, everybody who read the book, everybody who follows us on Instagram and TikTok and all that crap. Yeah, I just really appreciate it. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be back. We got a lot of big things in stores. Demons Within will be in bookstores within the next, who knows, but it will be. Yeah, and besides that, thank you for tuning in.